Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome you here to our wonderful new home at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center. And as we approach the end of our first academic year in this building, it's a special pleasure to have such a distinguished guest to be with us at this important time in history, in the history of Europe and the United States and our partnership together. So it's a particular pleasure for me to welcome Defense Minister Boris Pistorius to SAIS. Minister Pistorius assumed his role on January 19th, 2023, just about a year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, after serving as Interior Minister of Lower Saxony. Some of you may have read a recent article in The Economist about the minister. It was entitled, "How Boris Pistorius is Transforming the German Armed Forces." The subhead of this article is something that all of us who've ever served in government would love to see. The Economist proclaims, and I quote, "The defense minister is turning the country's promises into reality." Many of you will know of Chancellor Scholz's characterization of Germany's response to the invasion of Ukraine as, for Germany, a Zeitwende. But it's the minister's role to turn this into a reality, to make the Bundeswehr Kriegsstärke, war capable. The minister is here to meet with Secretary Austin and other leaders of the U.S. government here, and to meet also with his Canadian counterpart in Ottawa. He's going to deliver some remarks today entitled, "Steadfast, Capable, and Ready, Germany's Security Renaissance and the Transatlantic Defense," detailing Germany's approach to international security and the transatlantic partnership. You'll follow these remarks with a conversation by our colleague Jeff Rathke, who's the president of the American-German Institute here at Johns Hopkins. Jeff, prior to becoming the head of AGI, was a senior fellow at CSIS, following a distinguished 24-year career as a Foreign Service officer at the State Department. And I can't think of a more timely opportunity to discuss these issues in the wake of the decision, finally, of our Congress to move forward on new support for aid for Ukraine and the important issues that we're facing in transatlantic relationships as we face this common challenge. So welcome, Minister, and we look forward to your remarks.
Dean Steinberg, Jeff Rathke, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Dean Steinberg, for this very kind introduction. It's an honor for me to speak at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies today, a school with an impressive history of academic excellence. Time and again, history has been written at SAIS, not just by the many famous speakers you have hosted over the years, but more than anything, by the young minds you have educated and inspired to do great things out there. Considering your lists of graduates in foreign and security affairs, I expect nothing less of you than achieving world peace after graduation. Quite frankly, this school has been writing history by educating those who will shape the world. I can think of few tasks that are more meaningful. I'm grateful to Jeff Rathke and the American-German Institute who continue to play a leading role on all issues related to Germany and the US. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday on May 8th, I was at the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. I laid down a wreath in memory of the end of World War II, on the date which officially marks the end of one of the darkest chapters in human history. In 3 days, on May 12th, I will attend a connected yet entirely different event, the ceremony to commemorate at the end of the Soviet blockade of West Berlin, commemorating and celebrating the incredible efforts of American and British pilots at the end of the 40s. In June 1948, the first American and British DC-3 planes of the Berlin airlift touched down in the western parts of the city. A city that had been cut off by the Soviet Union from all crucial supplies. Pessimism was widespread. People feared hunger. Many believed that a new war was unavoidable. And all that in a place that still was in ruins from a war which had ended only 3 years earlier. Then, 76 years ago, the pilots of the Berlin airlift burst through these dark skies with their cargo of hope: food, coal, medical supplies, building material. With their deliveries, they gave people hope at a time when despair was everywhere. And with this cargo, they sent the message: we are there for you. Your security is our security. We will not let you down. All of this only to remember it 3 years after May 8th, only 3 years after the end of World War II. I find this is an incredibly strong symbol of transatlantic friendship. Now, I'm not here to sing the old transatlantic song of the candy bombers, a great symbol of good traditional transatlanticism. But it is worthwhile remembering today how much hope, how much optimism, and how much faith was brought to suffering people back then. We Germans will always remember what you did for us during the time of the airlift. And we will always remember your efforts in the decades afterwards, when freedom has to be defended on NATO's eastern flank, and when that flank was us, West Germany. I remember, yes I do, I remember growing up in my hometown of Osnabrück in Lower Saxony, in West Germany, in close neighborhood with British soldiers and the family. Osnabrück used to be the biggest garrison of British army outside Great Britain. On my way to school, I would regularly see people in uniform, and I looked at them with youthful admiration. They were part of our communities, part of our daily lives, and they became friends. These NATO allies were there to defend Germany from the Soviet threat. They were there to make our security your security. The resolve shown by US pilots, British soldiers, and many other allies and friends in 1948 and afterwards inspires transatlantic relations to this very day. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm visiting Washington as German defense minister at a time when the strategic landscape is denser and more challenging than it has been for decades. According to an old saying, dealing with your country's security means to always assume the worst. Thinking defense means thinking in worst-case scenarios. And it's indeed easy to surrender to pessimism given the truly enormous challenges we are facing almost everywhere today. But instead of surrendering, you will rather see me with grim dedication fighting the crises and challenges ahead of us. As we speak, Ukraine is fighting for its existence in a cruel war forced on it by a brutal, cynical Russian regime. Putin's illegal and inhumane war continues to bring unspeakable suffering to the Ukrainian people every day. The war is about much more than Russia and Ukraine. This war is about the question of whether we allow an imperialist power to invade another sovereign state in Europe and annex territories in violation of international law and effectively taking away the freedom of its people. Those who oppose democracy and freedom are looking very carefully at what is happening in Ukraine. And those who support democracy must support Ukraine's fight for freedom. We have to show Putin that he will not get away with this. We have to show him that the strength of the law is mightier than the law of the strongest. I believe Russia's war in Ukraine is Europe's most decisive challenge today. It is the most immediate and most urgent threat to the international order. Russia is, and for the foreseeable future will, continue to be the greatest threat to our common security. That is why Germany is one of the strongest supporters when it comes to helping Ukraine restore its territorial integrity. It is our responsibility to strengthen its resilience and it is our power to support Ukraine in fighting and winning this war. Today, Germany is the second largest contributor of military, financial, and economic aid to Ukraine. Russia's historic breach of international law and their attack on the decade-long peace in Europe have led Germany to abandon long-held political reservations, especially regarding the supply of arms to war zones. If you will, we are witnessing a complete change in zeitgeist. Today, German main battle tanks, infantry, fighting vehicles, howitzers, air defense systems, and many, many more systems are used by Ukrainian soldiers to fight the Russian aggressor. We are delivering 1/4 of our own Patriot systems to our Ukrainian friends, and we will not stop here. The German foreign minister and I have launched the Immediate Action on Air Defense initiative to boost air defense pledges. Together with our French partners, we lead the Capability Coalition on Integrated Air and Missile Defense, and we are constantly looking for ways to speed up the production and supply of ammunition, which is crucial too. This year alone, we spent already more than 7 billion euros on military assistance to Ukraine, and it will be more until the end of the year. We all know helping Ukraine is a joint effort. That is why I'm very pleased about and deeply grateful for the recent decision of Congress to pass a US assistance package to Ukraine. This will save much more lives. This decision will save thousands of Ukrainian lives while Russia remains resolved to win this cruel and bloody war. The military, but also the psychological dimension of this bill cannot be overestimated. Together we will prove that Russia cannot outlast us, that we are steadfast and strong, and that our support will not falter. Our support includes the training of Ukrainian military personnel in Germany. Only last year, about 10,000 servicemen and women underwent training in Germany. We owe this partly to our EU partners who sent additional military training staff to Germany. But Germany is not just providing military support to Ukraine. We have also taken in the largest number of Ukrainian refugees in the European Union, what means 1.1 million refugees, people from Ukraine. While the start of Putin's full-scale invasion, Germany train stations became a hub for people fleeing the war zone in Ukraine. Many refugees were welcomed into private homes, and more than half of the German population took action to help Ukrainian refugees. And Germany is also engaged in rebuilding Ukraine's destroyed cities and villages. Next month, Germany will host the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Berlin. I strongly believe that these efforts will have great impact on boosting the morale of Ukrainians in their fight for survival. Ladies and gentlemen, behind the terrible challenges we are facing in Ukraine today lies a strategic and fundamental question of European security. Keeping Europe united, free, and at peace has been an American strategic objective ever since those first DC-3 planes landed in Berlin. At the same time, we are aware that America's resources and attention cannot and will not be centered on Europe, only on Europe in the future. That is why we are working hard to make Europe's contribution to transatlantic burden sharing more relevant, and why we have taken on more responsibility for the security of our continent. In the past years, we Germans had to face a new reality. A reality in which we have free and democratic Europe on one side and authoritarian and aggressive Russia on the other. Only last year we published our very first national security strategy, which sets out German security interests and can be seen as a milestone on our journey towards coming of age in terms of security. As I stand here in one of the most prestigious universities in the United States, my message to you is, we understand what is at stake. We cannot simply watch and wait as international law, our order, and our values are being destroyed. Together we need to step in for the rules-based international order, and we cannot afford to fail as there is too much at stake. This applies worldwide and especially to hotspots in Africa, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific, and that applies in Ukraine. We are doing our fair share. Germany is making national and collective defense its priority. And this is new for our history after World War II, while at the same time reshaping its engagement in other parts of the world. Our Zeitenwende is real, and it's making a difference. What does the Zeitenwende mean? First, we are paying our share. This year, Germany will spend more on defense than ever before in the history of Bundeswehr. We have launched significant new investments in military equipment and will increase our national defense spending to more than 2% of our GDP this year, and we will not stop there. I am working hard every day to ensure that our spending and our investments will continue to rise and must continue to rise. 2% are our floor, not our ceiling. We have understood the times of the peace dividend are over. We are spending money on vital assets and capabilities, for example, to procure tanks, frigates, submarines, ammunition, deep fire capabilities, F-35 fighter aircraft, and CH-47F helicopters, and to strengthen the much-needed air defense. We have opened new production lines in Germany and are buying additional defense equipment, arms and ammunition in Europe, as well as in the US. With US defense companies, I mentioned that several times since arriving in the US, we currently have around 380 contracts with a total value of around 23 billion euros. This is a quarter of our special fund. Second, we are working very hard to prepare the Bundeswehr for today's challenges. That includes restructuring our armed forces as well as rethinking and improving the recruitment and retention process for our armed personnel. As many of you will know, Germany, like many other countries, suspended conscription after the end of the Cold War, a mistake. But times have changed. I'm convinced that Germany needs some kind of military conscription. We need to ensure our military staying power in a state of national or collective defense. And third, we are committed to the security of our partners. We know collective security is what makes us strong. The security of our allies is our security. Therefore, by next year, a majority of Bundeswehr troops will have been placed under NATO command, and approximately 35,000 of those will be of the two highest readiness levels. Our special focus remains on defending our allies at NATO's eastern flank. From the high north to the Balkans, from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean, we are dedicating substantial assets to the security of the alliance and of NATO as a whole. Across the eastern flank, we are ramping up the presence of the Bundeswehr, most prominently by deploying a robust, combat-ready permanent brigade in Lithuania. This is unprecedented in German history. Together with our allies, we are sending a strong message to Putin. If any Russian soldier puts their boots on Allied territory, we will defend every inch of it. I mentioned earlier that as a frontline state during the Cold War, and I remember that pretty well, Germany benefited greatly from the Allied presence in our country. The decision to permanently deploy a brigade to Lithuania is a big step for us and a lighthouse project of the Zeitenwende. A strong message that for us, national defense is collective defense. The security of our allies is our security. Your freedom is our freedom, and we stand ready to jointly defend both. Only 4 weeks ago, I saw off our forward command element at Berlin Airport. In the coming month and next year, we will deploy more servicemen and servicewomen to Lithuania while our Lithuanian friends will provide the necessary infrastructure. All of this is happening in close coordination with our allies and in line, of course, with NATO's defense plans. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us in Free Europe are grateful for the security umbrella the United States has offered over the past 75 years. Both sides of the Atlantic have benefited from this close partnership. Together, we are showing the world and all revisionist powers that we stand together. Whenever our values and legitimate interests are threatened, in being a strong member within NATO, the US gathers a reliable circle of allies around itself. NATO remains central to our security, and we do not take it for granted. Given our geographical location in the heart of Europe, and also because of our history, it is part of Germany's DNA to respond to security issues in close cooperation with its allies and partners. Our geopolitical relevance comes from our integration and cooperation with neighbors, partners, and allies. We see our bilateral and multilateral cooperation formats as a way to boost cooperation with Europe, because a strong transatlantic partnership requires a strong Europe. The formula is very simple: a stronger Europe for a stronger NATO. We are therefore working hard to strengthen the European pillar within NATO, and we are willing to take the lead. We Europeans need to translate our common responsibility into common strength by means of more integrated defense efforts, improved military mobility, logistics and infrastructure, and more cooperative defense procurement and development. With this in mind, Chancellor Scholz launched the European Sky Shield Initiative almost 2 years ago. Together with Norway, we are building identical submarines. Together with France, we will develop next-generation air and ground combat system. Our focus is on cutting-edge technology as well as an interoperability and interchangeability. And we are working hard to boost the defense industrial complex. Together with our partners in the defense industry, we are drastically stepping up production capacities for urgently needed equipment, arms, and ammunition. New production lines have been opened, for example, for producing Gepard air defense ammunition or air defense equipment or 155mm ammunition. We are fully convinced that our approach of acting with partners is what makes us stronger. I'm convinced that only we Europeans need NATO, that not only we Europeans need NATO, the United States needs the alliance as well. Because NATO is much more than a military alliance whose job is to respond to military attacks on alliance territory. It is a strong political bond between North America and Europe with the purpose of dealing comprehensively with security challenges from all across the globe, from nuclear proliferation to international terrorism, from cyber attacks to underwater threats, from tensions on the Korean Peninsula to escalation in the Middle East. I'm therefore very much looking forward to the upcoming NATO summit here in Washington. We will not only celebrate 75 years of transatlantic alliance, which has grown and become stronger over the years, we will also demonstrate our greatest strengths, our unity, and our ability to adapt to new geopolitical realities. The summit will demonstrate that at the age of 75, the alliance remains a credible backbone of our collective defense and remains capable of meeting today's challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now spent a lot of time talking about the threat Russia is posing to the international order. However, this does not in any sense mean that we Europeans are closing our eyes to other challenges in the world. We are well aware of the long-term challenges that China poses to the existing rules-based international order. And we are well aware of the close ties between Russia and China, which go way beyond political and economic cooperation. In the Indo-Pacific, we see Chinese ambitions grow, just as fear is growing over Beijing's military build-up, its aggressive economic policies, and its open quest for geopolitical dominance. We Europeans are well aware that America's resources and attention will increasingly move towards the Indo-Pacific. Germany is committed to making its contribution to the rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific as well, by enhancing our cooperation with valued partners in the region, by upgrading our participation in military exercises, but also by contributing to the maritime enforcement of UN sanctions against North Korea. To this end, in 2021, the federal government started its annual Indo-Pacific deployment. And this year we will deploy a frigate, a supply ship, and an Air Force detachment to the region. Just before boarding to New York City on Tuesday morning, I saw off the crew of our supply ship on its journey to the Indo-Pacific. And I was once more deeply impressed by their level of dedication and responsibility for this endeavor. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges we are confronted with are numerous. We are witnessing geopolitical competition around the world. Autocratic leaders are trying to challenge the democratic system at the heart of the Transatlantic Partnership. Climate change, poverty, and corruption are threatening lives and fueling conflicts. So are terrorism and religious extremism. 7 months after the terrible attack by the Hamas terrorists on Israel, I'm still shocked by the brutality and inhumanity committed against so many innocent children, men and women. The suffering on all sides is hard to bear. Shortly after the attack, I paid a visit to my colleague and friend Joachim Galland to underline Germany stands by Israel. Now, 7 months later, the risk of the conflict widening to other parts of the region remains. Indeed, the possibility of escalation is extremely high, with potential implications to the entire world. This is particularly the case given a potential nuclear Iran. The response to all of these challenges can only be a common one. None of us can succeed alone. We must work together to uphold the principles of our international order. Germany, ladies and gentlemen, is committed to doing so. That is why earlier this year, Germany sent a frigate to participate in the EU-led mission Aspides in the Red Sea. We will help protect maritime traffic in a region that is under attack by Houthis rebels from Yemen, together with our European partners and in close coordination with the US-led Operation Prosperity Guardian. Another region that has been and continues to be vital to Germans' interest is the Sahel. It is not only a region crucial for the stability of West Africa, but it also faces major challenges ranging from poverty and hunger to terrorism, failing states, and international power competition. Both Russia and China increased their influence in the recent years. Russia is highly ambitious. It is exploiting the ongoing political and security crisis and, as a result, destabilizing the already volatile security environment while spreading discord between the Sahel and the West. Meanwhile, China is becoming more active in promoting its economic interests in the region, creating economic dependencies that will cost the countries dearly in the future. And also, China will exploit these to push through its political interests and views, as several examples around the world show. Germany has a vital interest in the region's stability and prosperity. Our objective is to prevent destabilizing players from gaining a foothold there. We want people to be able to live in safety and dignity so that they have no reason to leave their homes and set out for Europe. We also understand that the people in the Sahel want self-determination in matters big and small. They do not want to be told what rules and principles they should follow in governing or managing their country. They are worried about maintaining their national sovereignty, not least as a result of their collective experience under colonial rule. This is the impression I took home from 2 trips to the Sahel, where I met not only with representatives of the ruling juntas, but also with representatives of civil society and NGOs. That is why we are committed to African ownership. And that is why we encourage African solutions to African problems. We stand ready to assist the countries that want peace and stability, that welcome our support in building their capacities, both with equipment and military expertise. We see this as a contribution to stability in a fragile environment, again, in close coordination with our partners and allies. Whether in Africa, the Middle East, or in Europe, our international order is under attack. Established and emerging powers are competing with the West, questioning the value and relevance of freedom and democracy. This means, whether in Africa, the Middle East, or in Europe, Germany and the United States of America are natural and indispensable partners. We will only be able to defend our common interests and our common international order together and in concert. When Paul Nietzsche and Christian Herter founded SAIS in 1943, 2 years before the end of World War II, the international order was in ruins. The founders of SAIS intended to prepare the next generation of leaders for meeting the complex challenges the US and the world would face following the war. Since 1943, this university has produced many generations of thinkers and doers. This institution has played a leading role in building a new global order. Today, we find ourselves at another turning point in history. Your president called it an inflection point where one era is ending and a new era is beginning. In Germany, we call that Zeitenwende. I'm convinced that only together, America and Europe can keep the West strong, defending it against Russia's expansionist ambitions and other actors' hunger for power and supremacy. My message to you today is, just like we did in other key moments in our transatlantic partnership, such as the Berlin airlift, the Marshall Plan, or the reunification of Germany, let us seize this transatlantic opportunity once more. I stand here to reassure Germany is a steadfast ally. Germany is capable and is ready to play its part within the alliance and in global politics. Let us, the US and Germany together, shape a future with all those who stand up for freedom, peace, and the rules-based international order. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Minister, thank you very much for those remarks. You have a reputation for being candid and direct, and I think you've given us some reason to understand why. And thank you, Dean Steinberg, for the very kind introduction. I'm Jeff Rathke, president of the American-German Institute, and it's a real privilege to be on this stage with Minister Pistorius and to start us off in discussion. We will get to questions also from the audience, so let me encourage everyone out there to consider if you want to ask a question and contribute to the discussion. You can begin thinking now for a concise and question-like formulation. Minister, you've spent significant time on this visit with Secretary Austin at the Pentagon, also on Capitol Hill. What do you take away from those discussions? Did you find resonance for that message that you've just been describing to us?
The short answer would be yes. But in the first place, I would like to apologize for my English. I never studied abroad. I finished my school a little bit more than 40 years ago. And in the time since then, I tried to improve it a little bit by practicing. But still, Sometimes I'm missing the words and I don't find the words. Sometimes I don't understand your questions, but be sure I will answer them nevertheless.
Well, I don't think you've given us any reason to doubt your comprehension. You talked about Russia at the start as the greatest threat to the international security order today. And if we follow the news, we read about Russian GPS jamming in the Baltic Sea, in the Black Sea, elsewhere. We read about arrests in your own country, in Germany, as well as in other places in Europe, with allegations of sabotage being planned in order to inhibit the flow of supplies to Ukraine, for example. This seems new. Is this new, and how serious a situation is this?
This is new, definitely, and if you had asked anybody 5 years ago what picture of the future war he have in mind, he would probably not describe what's not now going on in Ukraine, because we have a mixture between a traditional war, more or less almost like the World War I, on the one hand side, and on the other one, a hybrid war, a digital war, with electronic warfare, much more than ever before in history of war. And that makes it quite difficult to set the right priorities for armed forces, but also for politics, for intelligence and others. So what we experience, for example, and everybody can see it every day, is the enormous number of drones and missiles hitting Ukraine's territory. And it's very difficult and hard to defend the country, and especially the infrastructure. And therefore, air defense is so crucial for Ukraine, on the one hand side. On the other hand side is, the problem is that you need more electronic warfare structure. You need drones. You need the capability to defend drones entering your country. And this is new for everybody, but what I really admire is that the Ukraine armed forces really do that great, in a great manner. They learned very quickly. They took the right consequences, took the right consequences. You understand me, and I understand you. So this is very important, because they are so successful because they reacted quite quickly in the beginning of the war. And still, we have at the same time all the problems you mentioned in Germany, especially in Germany. We are the main target of Russian hybrid warfare, like digital attacks and others. That's quite clear, but we do everything to defend it, and up to now quite successful.
Okay, so you mentioned the role of drones and electronic warfare in Ukraine. What lessons do you draw for Germany's own defense from that experience?
Well, the only and one logical one. On the one, and in the first place, we have to improve our capabilities in land war. We need more tanks. We need especially air defense systems. We need our capabilities in the sea, like submarines and frigates, which we are doing. And at the same time, we have to prepare ourselves for that hybrid war and the war of drones and more missiles. Especially the war with drones is a challenge, because you can buy in every market almost for a couple of hundred of dollars a drone to attack anybody. And therefore I installed half a year ago a task force in my ministry, which is busy with passive and active drone policy. Mm-hmm. So what do we have to do in the next years? What kind of investment? What kind of training? Education of our soldiers? What do we need as industrial capabilities in Germany, in Europe? What is the consequence for European defense industry cooperation in that field as well? So a lot of questions. I think I will get the answers before the summer.
Okay, so there's more to come there in terms of resources and policies and acquisition, and then also doctrine to employ it. I mean, that leads me straight to a resource question, if I can skip ahead to that. Since 2014, Germany has increased its defense budget by about 60%, adjusted for inflation, according to NATO's data. You mentioned that Germany will hit the 2% of GDP target this year. Now, that was a target that was established 10 years ago. in response to what now looks like a relatively minor invasion of Ukraine's sovereign territory and the annexation of Crimea. If you spend a little time in Washington, you very quickly hear the phrase, 3% is the new 2%. And you've talked about, as well, I believe, about depending on global circumstances, it might require more. So when you say 2% now and more to come, what kind of scope do you envision? And to what degree is that a challenge for you and the whole German government?
In the first place, I'm a real fan of the 2% pledge as the floor, to be honest. Second, I went to Norway a couple of weeks ago, and I met my colleague, and he was in a very bad mood. I said, "What happened to you?" He said, "Oh, we failed to reach the 2% pledge." He said, "What? Norway? How could that happen?" And then he told me, "Okay, it did not happen because we spent too little money for defense, but we failed to reach 2% because the GDP increased heavily." So what I want to say is the 2% pledge is one parameter, but not the only one. Mm-hmm. We need to reach it in any way, to achieve that in any way, but at the end, it's more important to do as much as necessary, not as possible, as necessary. So if I would underline what I would need in 2 or 3 years when there is no cent left of the special fund for the army, then I would need at least 20, 30 billion euros per year more to reach the 2% pledge and to have enough money, more or less enough money to buy and to procure what I need. But at the same time, and that problem we have not solved yet, the industry, neither in Germany nor in the US or in other countries of the world, is yet at the level to produce as much as we need. That matches with ammunition, with missiles, with Patriot systems, and whatever you name. So we have to synchronize that. We need more money, there's no doubt about it, and I think we will rather arrive at 3% or even more. And at the same time, we need a strategy to build up more capacities in the defense industry.
Germany's budget policy has been one of...
By the way, we were not the only ones who failed with that pledge. I mean, in this year, 2/3 of the NATO members achieve 2% only.
Yes.
So, and in the last decade, it were even less. Fortunately, we were not alone.
There are plenty of underperformers out there, and we could list them, but I don't want to lose time with you. Germany's budget policy has been driven since 2011 by the so-called debt brake. In other words, it limits the amount of borrowing that the government can do. Now, we don't have a debt brake in this country. You might notice if you look at our levels of public indebtedness. But is the debt brake, does it undermine the ability of Germany to meet the defense obligations the country has and its European and transatlantic role?
Not if you use it in an appropriate way.
Okay.
The debt brake had its sense. It was senseful 10 years ago, more or less. I was never a fan of it because I always estimated it as a brake, as an obstacle for investments in infrastructure. What is proved now. But anyway, the debt brake is now a problem. If you can't spend the money you have to spend for achieving security for the society and for fulfilling the role in the alliance. So, for example, next year we are talking about a gap in the budget of about 25 billion euros. There are some wishes of other ministries, and I said I need next year 6.5 billion euros more. Otherwise, we would have a stop of procurement of weapons and anything else. So this is a problem because together with the billions I want, the demands, and what the other ministries want, we are talking very quickly about 35 up to 40 billion euros not having in the budget for next year. And we have now a discussion in Germany how to create the money, how to find the money.
There are those who say, okay, we have to cut social benefits or anything else. Others say we have to increase taxes. But the ones who say we need to cut social benefits are the same who denies increasing taxes, and saying we need to stay with a debt break. This is like I don't know how to say that. Die eierlegende Milchwollsau.
I'll let you do that one.
It is like
Something that can do everything.
Yes.
This is a very good translation. This is really
It's like a dairy cow that lays eggs.
it's quite difficult, at least, and so we have to lead the discussion now in the weeks to come, because we need to find a solution anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a social democrat. I would never say I don't mind what happens in the social sector, because I don't want the wrong decisions, political decisions, and social aspects as a program to push far right or far left parties. That would be the wrong consequence. In that case, they would even leave the NATO, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So an AfD would leave NATO. So what we have to do is to find a way. This is the art of finding a compromise.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but we have to do that.
One question on Ukraine. When you look around Europe, and as you've said, Germany is now the second largest provider of assistance to Ukraine, not only military assistance. There's a big gap between Germany and whoever comes in third. Are you disappointed in your European counterparts' level of commitment, and what is Germany doing to try to raise the performance of your European partners?
To be honest, being disappointed is not a category for me in politics, because I understand that every state has its own challenges and problems and structures and procedures and so on. I mean, let's have a look to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
60 billion euros everybody was waiting for because of the procedures here in Washington. I understand that fully, but therefore I can't say I'm disappointed about any country in Europe or the US or whatever else. What I have in mind is we need to strengthen Ukraine. We need to do more, and even now more than ever before, because when the going gets tough, the Ukraine needs even more reliable friends than before.
Okay. We have time now to take some questions from the audience. So if you would like to intervene, please put up your hand. We have some microphones running on either side. I see one, the lady in the white jacket here. That's Phyllis, isn't it?
Hi. My question is about NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg's $100 billion proposal for Ukraine. What do you think of that, and how can NATO allies show a more long-term commitment to funding Ukraine's military reconstitution?
We'll take a couple together, if that's okay. I saw a hand, I think in the red shirt here in this row. Yes.
Thank you.
Please identify yourself as well.
Yes, sehr geehrter Herr Pistorius, herzlichen Dank, dass Sie die Zeit heute genommen haben. My name is Leonard Müller, and I'm a German student here at SAIS about to graduate. And my question is, I mean, all of us are thinking about what to do after graduation now, and you mentioned us maybe trying to work for peace in the future. But I'm frankly afraid of the future, especially the state of European democracy, German democracy. So I'm wondering what your vision is for Germany, free of fascists and radicalized conservatives who now use the same language like the Trumps and the Sebastian Kurz of this world, and are a real danger for our democracy. So what's your vision for the future of Germany, and maybe even under your leadership one day? Thank you.
Well, there's a leading question.
I didn't get the last question.
I'll let you take those two rather disparate
That's what I
questions.
meant. I don't understand everything. Well, I start with a 100 billion euro question. I think the proposal is very good, but you can't spend the same dollar, the same euro twice. So if it comes to a budget like that of 100 billion euros, we would have to insist on counting in what we have already done, because we did the most in Europe during the last years. So if we come to that idea, we'll have to find a structure for it that everybody finds its way to deal with it domestically. To the other question, shouldn't we rather organize another evening like that? Because this is really a very complex question. Because what we see and what really concerns me a lot is that democracies, not only in Europe but all over the world, are very much under pressure. We can see it every day. I could name now the countries in Europe, but everybody here knows them. I don't want to get in diplomatic troubles. But what I see in Germany, to speak about Germany, is we have Eastern Länder in which the AfD is in the polls far beyond 30%. That means in a certain situation, in a particular situation, they could even have the absolute power in Thüringen or in Sachsen. What an incredible picture for me that Nazis will start again their career in Germany in Thüringen or Sachsen like in 1933. And therefore it is so crucial that we learn from history, and that means not only in Germany, also in the US, or in other European countries. What I always underline is that the Weimar democracy, the Weimar Republic, did not fail, did not die, because their enemies were so invictable strong, but because their supporters, their lovers, were so weak and so covered. And this is the lesson we have to learn out of that time. And therefore we have to stand up and to make clear what kind of people we are talking about when it comes to the AfD. We are not learning that some of them are spies of Russia, China, and I don't know what else, maybe even Iran, I don't know. But this is a way we have to talk about it. A prime minister of one Bundesland in Germany a couple of days underlined, and he's absolutely right. We are talking about a party which is a Nazi party, not because all members of the party are Nazis, but very influencing members with strong and loud voices do speak like Nazis and think like Nazis. Therefore, we have to really treat, and I said it some days before in a public discussion, we have to treat them what they are, and to make it clear what we are talking about. Otherwise, we will fail with the second democracy in Germany and in other countries.
We have time for one last round. I want to make sure that we get a question from somebody who looks like a student here in the second row. Yes, gentleman in the blue shirt. Can we bring the mic down this way?
Hi, I'm Martin. I'm doing a PhD here, and SAIS is a private institution, but here it's completely normal that in every single class there is at least one American military officer who is studying here, whereas this has never been the case at any German university I attended. And I think it gives the military officers a chance to be educated alongside their civilian counterparts, so that the civilian military leaders study together. Is there any plan or intention on your part to change this in Germany as well, so that the military officers in Germany don't just study at the German military universities, but rather also the civilian ones? Thank you.
At least I don't know anything about that idea, but the difference might be if I know enough about the difference in the structure in the education. We have University of the Bundeswehr, which are like civil universities. They are at the same level as all the other universities and can be compared with. So therefore they are, of course, educated and trained in what they need as officers of the army, of the armed forces, but at the same time they do even more. Therefore they make the same graduates like bachelor and master at the end. And they do study civilian matters. How do you say, Fächer? Yeah, matters. Subjects, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So, but still the idea is charming, and I will talk to my staff whether we can make something like a trial to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for your presence here, for people who are watching online, and for your engagement in this discussion. Minister, you have been candid and extremely thoughtful, and I want to thank you for your time, for coming here to Johns Hopkins and the Bloomberg Center, and I want to thank all the colleagues at SAIS, including Chris Crosby, and from the Bloomberg Center, Ruth Pallam. Thanks to Michael Pallam, the naval attaché, and especially to Jack Fornaziero from AGI. Thanks for coming out today, and we look forward to remaining in contact with you and seeing you again in the future.
Thank you very
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Vielen Dank.